In episode 4, Usopp explains to Kobe exactly what's going on, how pirates have infested the town, and how his friend really needs help at the moment. But then you've got Helmeppo, who doesn't believe any of it, especially when he hears the pirate who apparently is alive. He says, "No, that's impossible. My father took care of that dude." Helmeppo walks away saying, "We're no closer to finding Straw Hat than we were hours ago." And Usopp says, "Wait, are you talking about Luffy?" And Kobe says, "Wait, you know Luffy?" And Usopp explains, "Yes, I know Luffy. He's in trouble too. He's at the same place. We need to go now." And because Luffy could possibly be there, that gets the attention of the Marines, so they escort Usopp back to Kaya's house to see exactly what's going on. All the while, Helmeppo's being very dismissive of it. He just doesn't believe that Koro is alive. And when they get to the mansion, Koro answers the door, and none of them recognize him as a pirate. That's because he's dressed like a butler. And he handles himself like a butler. Even after Usopp tells everybody he's the guy, he's who I'm talking about, they're still kind of hesitant to believe that this butler would be a pirate. He just currently doesn't fit the description. And on top of it, Koro explains to them both, yeah, look, he's been doing this for years. Poor Usopp runs around saying pirates are in the town, and they're never in the town. He just hasn't been the same since his mother died. Kobe, you can tell, is a little torn. He wants to believe Usopp, but his eyes are telling him another story. He does see if Koro / this butler does have any knives on him, but he doesn't. The fact is, Usopp's story isn't really adding up. Helmeppo ends up interjecting himself into the conversation, saying, "We're looking for a fugitive who goes by the name Luffy." And Koro says, "Oh, yeah, Luffy. Usopp brought him around. I actually have one of the staff members keeping an eye on him now. I'll go get him." Koro goes back in the house and radios Bucci and Shams that they need to bring Luffy to the front door. The Marines are here. As Kobe, the Marines, and Usopp wait for Luffy to show up at the front door, Usopp tries to explain himself one more time to Kobe that what he's saying is true. He's not even so much concerned about Luffy or himself. He's more concerned about Kaya being in the house with this pirate. And Kobe feels for him, but he has to tell him, "You have no proof, unfortunately." A few seconds later, Bucci shows up at the front door with Luffy, and it's pretty clear that Luffy is not in a good place. He is completely knocked out, and Kobe is not used to seeing him like that, so he asks Koro, what's wrong with him? Koro blames it on the food and the liquor, when the reality is, Luffy just got into the poisoned food. Once the Marines have Luffy in custody, Koro tries to go back in the house, but Kobe stops him and says, "No, I have a few more questions for you." Before he can actually ask any questions, though, they both hear something coming from deep in the house that sounded like a bang. The bang was Nami taking out Shams. Nami was actually the one who found Luffy knocked out. She was really concerned, but when she heard people coming, she had to hide. And she heard the whole bit about how these people are pirates, about how they have been poisoning Kaya. She decided in that moment to kind of bide her time until she could get Shams alone and then take her out. When Kobe, though, asks what that noise is, Koro just says it's an old house. It's creaky. And then he decides to go back inside, shutting the door in Kobe's face. Usopp, who is blown away at this point that no one is listening to him and nobody's going to be helping out Kaya, ends up running away. He knows he needs to sneak into the house before the house gets locked down. If the Marines aren't going to protect Kaya, he's going to have to do it. So he does that. He runs away, he finds a way into the house, and he gets into Kaya's bedroom and wakes her up. And he explains to her that her butler, her entrusted butler, is not who he says he is. He's a pirate. And at first, it is really, really difficult for Kaya to believe that. She's known this guy for 3 years. He's taken care of her. He's looked after her. But Usopp is insistent that she's being played. And it really isn't until Nami comes to the door and explains everything that Kaya finally comes on board with believing that she was being duped. It's still really difficult for Kaya to understand and to accept, but at this point, they're going to be in a fight for their life, so they need to find a way out. And that's going to be really difficult. Because with the Marines sniffing around and Kaya finally 18 and having all that money, Koro is done biding his time. Once he does get in the house, he tells both Shams and Bucci to lock the house down. They're going to kill Koro, finally collect the money, and then get out of town. So as Kaya and Usopp and Nami are trying to get out of the house, they see it gets locked down, and now they know they're being hunted. They could certainly use the assistance of Roronoa Zoro, but he's stuck in a well. That's where Shams and Bucci dropped him. He had a really, really tough time getting out, but he was able to. He used the strength from his past. You find out that the reason why Zoro carries 3 katanas is because one is for his old adversary turned ally. When he was younger and training, there was a girl who was much better than him. And he wanted to beat her so badly, but he never could. They ended up going from enemies to friends and vowing that one of them would be the greatest swordsman ever. Unfortunately, she died thanks to an accident, and he ended up taking her sword as a remembrance, vowing one day to keep that promise. So as he sat in that well, he remembered that promise. It motivated him to get out of the well. But Zoro has no idea what is actually going on. He starts making his way back to the house when he comes upon Helmeppo, who is really eager to just shoot Luffy. Because as they were escorting Luffy back to the boat, Luffy ended up waking up. And he started to explain to Kobe what was going on, how everything Usopp said was right, and how they have to go back to help Kaya. But Helmeppo didn't want to hear it. At that point, he just wanted to kill Luffy and get it over with. And Luffy would have died. Absolutely. He would have gotten shot. But Zoro ended up coming to his aid. He knocked the other Marines out. He finished up with Helmeppo. And he probably would have knocked out Kobe too, but he recognized him. As Zoro and Luffy started to head back to the house to help out Nami, Kaya, Usopp, Kobe yells, "Hold it right there. You guys are under arrest." Luffy stops. He walks back. He looks Kobe in the eye and he says, "I know you've got a job to do, but I'm going to go back and help my friends. So don't try to stop me." And Kobe stands down. Now the good news is the trio of Nami, Kaya, Usopp, they figured out a way to unlock the house. So once Zoro and Luffy do arrive, they're able to get inside. They just have to locate Koro, Bucci, and Shams. While that's going on, you've got Kaya and her group trying to avoid those 3. Way easier said than done, though. Eventually, Koro does end up locating the 3. And he's about to kill Kaya, but he's stopped by Luffy. Luffy and Zoro decide to split up. Luffy was able to locate Koro, while Zoro had his hands full with Bucci and Sham. But the number one goal for Luffy was to keep Kaya, Usopp, and Nami alive. Initially, he thinks it's going to be easy, but when Koro starts shape-shifting around, he realizes it's going to be way more difficult than he thought. Anytime he throws a punch, Koro is easily able to evade it. It seems like Koro is kind of toying with him like a cat with a mouse, but Luffy changes up his strategy. He stops blindly throwing punches at a target, and he decides to use his other senses. He starts listening. Once he starts to focus and hears Koro move his foot, he throws a roundhouse punch that catches Koro completely by surprise. Luffy ends up headbutting Koro right out of the house, knocking him out. Zoro was able to neutralize both Bucci and Sham, but now that those 3 are taken care of, Luffy's crew has the Marines to worry about. They know that the Marines are close, and they know they're going to have to get out of town. They say, "Well, how are we going to do that? We don't have a ship." And Kaya says, "Oh, yes, you do." When she says that, Luffy gives the biggest smile to Nami because it turns out, yeah, he just won the bet. The 5 of them head down to the shipyard, and Kaya is going to give Luffy the boat that he wanted. Luffy names the ship the Going Merry in honor of Kaya's former accountant who died. There is one thing missing, though. He feels like he needs another member of the crew, and he asks Usopp to join. Initially, Usopp says, "I can't. I got to take care of Kaya." But Kaya tells Usopp, "It's time for me to take care of myself. Go. Be a pirate. Go on the seas. Join the crew." So Usopp gives Kaya a big hug. He vows to come back. And now Luffy has one more crew member to the Going Merry. The 4 of them set sail for the Grand Line. They, though, are not the only ones to hit the seas. Koro also escapes in a lifeboat, but he doesn't have the luxury of kind of kicking back. And that's exactly what Luffy's group does. They're kicking back. They're enjoying life. Usopp's even taking the time to make them a flag. And that's when things get interesting. They start hearing a noise outside, this bombing sound, and when they head up to the deck, they see that the Marines are attacking them. Luffy decides to take a closer look with a spyglass, and when he sees that it's Kobe standing next to Garp, he doesn't say, "Oh, it's Kobe." Instead, he surprises everybody by saying, "Grandpa?" Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.